Hello everybody, welcome to another edition of What is the Story of This Position? And today I'm going to be covering a game that I reviewed last night as it was being played between two 1900s in a fierce battle of the London. Now the London has a reputation of being drawing and dull, and my experience is that it's very rarely boring or dull, and one just has to gain a sense of what the imbalances are. So let's take a look at this position as a beginning, and the question will be white to move, what should he do, and what is going on in the position. Pause if you like, consider it, and I'll be back to discuss it. Okay, so Joel was white here, and a very tense position, really. Let's just state the obvious imbalances. We have to worry a little bit about this pawn. We have to worry a little bit about knight h5. On the positive side for white, though, he has more time in that this queen got a free developing move with bishop takes and queen takes. So we have our normal advantage of being up a tempo +1, but maybe that queen isn't so well developed, and it did hurt that we traded our good bishop for his bad bishop. Just bad in the sense that it's blocked by his own pawns, as is this guy blocked by our pawns. Okay, so very interesting position, and I think this is one where white has to have a lot of skill. I'll show you first what Joel played. Joel played h3, which is not horrendous, but I think a good rule of thumb for the London players is they should only play h3 if they have to. And right here, the interesting thing is, if you castle, first of all, we're going to be less worried about this because if he takes it, we're up many tempi, and of course a big fat rook is going to land on b7. But maybe, or I assume obviously, that Joel was worried about knight h5 after castles, and that was why h3 happened. Let's take a look. So castles, knight h5, and the knight, of course, is out on the rim and not happy over there. It's only happy if it can get out of life by trading. And a very strong move for Joel here would have been bishop e5. And like I said, there are a variety of ways for white to get out of this, and he just needs to be aware of them as a London player. And the trick is, when in this position anyway, when black goes after our bishop, we have this move, bishop d4, and he is out, he is freed, plus we're going to get that g4. G4 is a huge threat coming now from white, trapping the terrible knight. Okay, so that's position one, and let's go ahead and throw it back immediately and say, black to move, what should he do? Pause, and then we'll come right back. Okay, so this is an interesting position for Vishnu, I think especially psychologically, because he really did lose his mind here. And players, when they lose their mind, it's usually out of a sense of not feeling comfortable with the position or just not having a sense of what's going on. It happens to everybody. And one of the things that usually happens when we lose our sense of the position is we make multiple mistakes. And that's where this phrase comes from, where we say mistakes come in pairs. Basically, Vishnu's going to continue to make mistakes until he lands somewhere and finds a grounding again, which is so important. One of the reasons it's so important to have a story of the position like we're doing here. All right, so the standard move, there's two things that black could do. I think both are valid. One is to say, since you gave me a tempo, now is my time to take. And that is truly a very interesting position. And while I was looking at it last night and just this morning reviewing it again, I'm not sure how to evaluate that position. A far easier move that Vishnu could have done is just play bishop e7, castles, and then say, okay, white, what do you want to do? What do you want to do in this position? And honestly, it's very hard for white to find a meaningful plan in this position. And of course, The queen takes b2 thing is still on the table. So let's go and review what Vishnu did. He played c takes d4, which is definitely wrong. And one simple way to understand how it's wrong is that this pawn is better than either one of the c3 or e3 pawns, which is how those are the options for white to recapture. And this tension is just generally favorable for black. That pawn's better. It's more centralized than either one of the other pawns. That's one of the advantages of this structure for black. So he gives it up, and one thing we're really going to think about now is that the structure has shifted. Now we're in a Carlsbad structure with really a lot of different ideas. And now white has a plan, which he then is going to set in motion, which is to plant the knight on e5, probably put a rook on e1, and start an initiative not only against the king, but of space on the king's side. The white pawns now, of course, are pointing this way, and the black pawns are pointing this way, meaning just that the pawns pointing usually indicates which side of the board we should attack. Okay, like I said, mistakes come in pairs, and Vishnu plays this weird move. Knight g6, bishop h2, bishop d6. And we see that this must have been the inspiration for Vishnu to play cd and knight e7, which is to challenge the bishop on h2, the dreaded London bishop. And this is not great because of knight e5, after which the general rule that I like a lot is if white has a strong point, don't attack it unless you can actually take it out. And in this case, black is not going to be able to take it out. Now, before I continue talking about what's going on in the position, I just want to mention a meme that was created from this game, and that is that Vishnu was so traumatized, and is traumatized by the London, that someone created this for him. You know, he is really, truly at a loss when he plays the London, to the extent that he believes the London is bad for you on a health basis if you play it as white. I have a little bit of a joke when I say it's a health basis, but that it makes you a dull and stolid player if you play the London. And I disagree. Like, we've seen many different choices that white has to make in this game already that require a lot of skill. And one of the skills really is dealing with the different structures that can arise. And what we see in this position is definitely that we're playing a Carlsbad structure, and we're going to put the knight on e5, which Joel does. Okay, this one's a truly difficult one. White to move, and what is going on in the position. I want to say, as a chess player, I often feel moments of dread. And when I say that, what I mean is dread in terms of lacking a sense of what I should do. And I felt a little bit of that here. Because, first of all, at some point I do want to defend the b pawn. It's important to note that anytime I move this knight, then the knight's, wherever I move it, this knight's going to come to e4. I'd really like to play rook e1, but I'm worried about this kind of thing. I'd like to maybe play queen c2, but then after rook c8, he's going to be threatening things like queen takes d4. So this was a difficult moment, and what we're going to see in the next couple moves from Joel is he plays very maximalist and played the move f4. Which, we're going to talk about, well, let's talk about it right now. The reason this is controversial mostly is that it blocks your bishop. That's the main reason that move is a little bit funky. A move that's instructive is knight g6, some kind of trade, takes, and the point is that even here, white has a very nice advantage. And I'm going to give a link to a Carlsen game that was played in this structure, which showed that even with reduced material, white can still pursue an initiative against the king side. And I should have mentioned earlier, black's main idea in this position, if he's got nothing else, is to play for a minority attack with b5, b4. And that's not the easiest thing to do when your queen's on b6, right? Okay. Now, one thing that I completely misread when I was watching the game, and I guess the players did as well, is that now that black is castled, he actually did have this threat of queen b2. And the point is that on rook b1, by the way, you don't want to take here because that would end disastrously. After rook b1, queen a3, rook b7, there's just this very simple and strong rook b8. After which, there's just nothing for the rook that special to do there. And so you can see both players imagined that they had strong, that rook b7 was just going to be amazing, and then it turns out it's not so simple at all. And now, of course, this pawn is threatened, and then a5 does maybe roll. And you notice with a move like rook fb1, you're not even doing anything. So I missed that during the game, and both players missed it as well. Okay, so f4, controversial. Rook a d8, which was, I didn't even understand the point at when it was played. And so let's show what the idea was, and then we'll ask what white should do. Okay, so king h1, knight e4. Very deep, and let's ask then, what is the idea? I shouldn't have told you there was a deep move. Of course, the better move would have been queen b2, but like I said, both players didn't see that. And let me just mention, actually, the simple way for white to have played here was just rook b1. But anyways, let's do this from white's perspective. After knight e4, what should white play? Okay, this was a difficult moment, and one of the difficulties for white, and I've definitely felt this as well, is I felt like white deserved to be better here. And that's often a tricky situation to be in, to believe you're better, because then you start trying to justify it. And trying to justify can really often land in trouble. And when you look at it, I guess we should take this thing, and I guess we should probably not take it. And the reason this is tricky, and it's a little surprising, is now, let's say rook b7, there is grief on the d4 square. And that was the hidden point, I guess, behind Vishnu's rook d8. Though, really, instead of king h1, rook b1 would have given more questions to black. In any case, interesting move. White, I think, as I said, probably should take it and play something like queen c2. Let's call it roughly equal. Though at the game, I was confused because I felt like white should be better. Rook b1, and let's throw it back. What should black play? To me, this was an obvious mistake immediately. Vishnu took the knight, and now he has really returned to all the problems he had before, which is the knight on e5 is really being a jerk, and there's very little counterplay for black. So definitely, by all means, the right move was f5, and the point is, white either has to give black that strong pawn on e4, or he has to leave the knight on e4, and no matter how you do it, this bishop is really silenced on h2. And that has been one of the strategic problems that white's had since f4 was played. Okay, so queen takes, f6. Black could have done other things, but this is clearly part of Vishnu's scheme where knight e4 was played at least partly with the intention of kicking this knight. Now, let's ask the question. Usually I don't say what the options are, but let's say it's a very simple two moves. You can take the knight, or you can move him back somewhere. Okay, take a moment. This position, in this position, Joel played knight takes g6, and I felt that was definitely a mistake. I think I get it, and I'm sure many of you chose knight g6 as well. The reason it seems appetizing to play takes, I'm sure, is that these pawns feel weak. And really the only thing you need to see is that after king f7, the king really does a great job in defending a lot of the squares. Black isn't better by any means, but he's not worse. And it's important to really stress that now the bishop, it's hard. Like, and especially here, how is he ever going to play f5? So definitely knight d3. And let me say a couple things about it. First, let's just note that this knight is much better than this knight. Not only is he preventing e5, but at some point he's going to look at c5. He's, of course, defending b2, which is very nice. And even the later potential counterplay of b4, the knight will make it more difficult for black to do that. In addition, though, what's really important is that knight d3 keeps the options of us playing f5 open, simply so that we can improve our position at some point. Our position, I really mean our bishop. We want to have that option for our bishop open. And it's a very clear plan, too. We're going to first just begin by doubling on the e-file and see what black does. And black is really going to be in a very passive situation, very difficult to hold. So the game now descended into a blitz battle, and all kinds of crazy things happened, mistakes on both sides, and I'm just going to show one more beautiful move that Vishnu played, but I'm going to give you a chance to find it yourself. Queen h7 was just played here. It's black to play, and go ahead and see if you can find what the nice move here is for black. Black here played a study-like move. He played queen h6. And if white takes, that's just what a roughly equal position. And if bishop h4, we scooch over. And so the real point is that if queen g8, which was played, we have check, bishop h2, and now a beautiful pattern that is given in a lot of problems and is found in a lot of famous games. No matter how you defend, checks on these three squares are going to follow. So a very nice battle between the two 1900s, and you can see, like, if 1900s can find moves like queen h6 in time pressure, well, they're dangerous customers. And, you know, not so easy for the GMs to always crack them or anything like that. And some very nice moves as well. So I hope the London players got a sense a little bit about the problems of their opening and just the general sense, which is what I'm more interested in, of how to find good moves and the stories behind those moves. I hope people found that useful. All right, till next time. Bye-bye.